Warning. Listening to this show may result in increased levels of inspiration, motivation, and innovation. Side effects can include the immediate urge to take massive action to build a better business and life for yourself and others. You've been warned. Welcome to Influencers Radio with your host, Jack Mize.
Welcome back to another episode of Influencers Radio. You know, throughout history, jewelry has been more than a simple fashion accessory. Jewelry has told us about different cultures. It's something people hold dear and pass down through generations. But for my guest today and her clients, it can be so much more. Today my guest is jewelry artist and holistic metalsmith Ali Kauss, the creator of Transformational Adornment. For over 20 years, Ali has been creating pieces of jewelry with precious metals that speak to the essence of an individual's journey. Each piece of jewelry is handcrafted using Ali's unique creative process, one that involves traditional tools and techniques as well as her intuition. And the result is a beautiful, customized, and powerful symbol of empowerment and encouragement to express individuality and claim self-worth. Ali, welcome to Influencers Radio.
Thank you. It is an honor to be here.
Well, I'll tell you, when I started seeing what you were doing and seeing some of the pieces, it just made me think so much beyond jewelry. And I got to tell you, and I know that most of the people that you work with are women, and as a man, jewelry has never really been something that's caught my eye too much or held interest in me. I always think about when I see the guys. I always think, you got something in a gold nugget. That it's just not something that I've thought about much. But some of your pieces just really make me think it really is art, and it takes jewelry into that space of art. So I'd like to kick this off by asking you about transformational adornments and how it transcends jewelry beyond being a fashion accessory.
Sure, that's a great question. And I will just add quickly that I do make jewelry for men, so we can talk about that later.
Oh, perfect.
So I actually do have a background in fine art. So I come from an arts, a place of arts where wearable art is definitely what I consider is what I do. And for me, because jewelry has been worn since the beginning of time, humans have been wearing jewelry since the beginning as a vehicle of communication, but also to connect with the divine. And that's whatever word you want to put in there, God, source, spirit, whatever word you have for that. But it's been used, jewelry has been used to connect an individual to that higher power. And for me, my custom transformational adornments really help the individual feel that essence within themselves. That is definitely my intention behind the process of what I do, so that someone feels connected to that higher power, feels a place in their community, and feels that from the inside out. So to me, that is really the transformational part of what I do.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people, when they think about jewelry, they go shopping for jewelry and they pick the one that, strikes them. Right. Mm-hmm. But you, it's not just a menu here. Which one do you want? It's really, you create something that's a reflection of someone, and not just, I guess, what do you wear? What goes with this? What goes with that? It really is a reflection of something much deeper. And I think that's something that, maybe, well, I thought it would be harder for me to get my head around, but the way that you describe some of this and what you do, it just makes so much sense. Can you talk about, how that works and how you get inside someone, not just, this would look good on you, but how you create something that is a reflection of them, and also maybe reflection of their journey.
Sure. Yeah, so I have a questionnaire that comes with every transformational adornment to kind of get an individual connected to what this piece is about. And I encourage any of the pieces, any of a transformational adornment to be about celebrating something. And that could be celebrating an anniversary or a birthday or the birth of a baby, but it could also be something that's much more internal that only the individual knows about. And that's also where the transformation comes from. So from the get-go, the individual gets a questionnaire that asks them their intention. It asks them what they're celebrating. And then it goes a little deeper on what is it that you're working on. So a lot of the, it could be abundance, it could be intuition, it could be health in any number of ways. And so I kind of get this, feeling, these little inklings of what they've responded, but then also through an intuitive process, I get a reading of what this really could look like and help them to achieve, not only celebrate, but achieve more of their goals. Because when they're asked about what they're working on or, what they want more of in their life, it gives me a hint of what their personal growth and transformation is about. And not everybody has to have that language. That doesn't have to be part of their journey to be on personal growth and transformation. But as humans, we're always, hopefully growing and changing. And I think that's what, my clients really respond to, is that they're seen on that level of, the depth that we are as humans. So I go back to them with their questions and let them know what stones, because all stones, gemstones, crystals have their own energetic and healing properties. And they're also beautiful. They're also these gorgeous representations of that individual. At least that's where I come at it from. And then, then they wear this as a reminder of what they're celebrating, whether externally or internally, but also what they're working on. And that's a really honest connection for the individual on what their subconscious, what they're working on a subconscious level.
Well, you said a couple of things that just, I had to take some notes because I want you to go in deeper because, one of the things that you talked about is, the jewelry. There's jewelry that people think of, oh, it's shiny and pretty, right? But if you find someone that wears jewelry regularly or has a piece of jewelry that it's clear that it is an important piece to them, a lot of times it's not that shiny, pretty. It's not the it's not the Rolex, right? It's not the diamond. It's something that is really has a beauty in its own. But I think mainly because it means something to them. And jewelry isn't just, oh, look how pretty it is. It often represents something in their life, and it sounds like that's what you are creating when you say that you are celebrating something. But really, I guess what it is it represents a very important part of their life, or maybe I guess transformation, or celebrating a person. Would that be correct?
Yeah. And, jewelry, like you mentioned in the beginning, has been worn for centuries for this variety of reasons. And one of those is confidence. I mean, I think if women are wearing jewelry, it's part of them getting ready in the morning, right? It's that next layer of feeling put together. And that's that's an excellent way to express who you are on an individual level. So jewelry is, that creative expression and helps you feel confident in who you are, which is a representation of yourself, which is who you are as an authentic individual.
That word authentic. And I think that's something that we should talk about. One, kind of defining some terms and maybe getting a little controversial even, but when we talk about beauty, we talk about authenticity. in this world that we live in now with the social media and filters and everyone's striving for this perfection. And to me, a lot of times, this striving for perfection is I can't describe it except for like ugly is the only word that I can think of to describe it, because it is. And when I look at your pieces, and you have some wonderful videos where you show all kinds of pieces, but the ones that strike me are the ones that, I guess, until you verbalized I really, I was having a hard time, uh, putting a word to the thought, but it really is celebration of imperfections. It's that celebrating the beauty of asymmetry. And I think that all ties to authenticity. Do you find that when people, as you go through this creative process, that it's more than just picking out what they like, that maybe it's also a process of self-discovery as they're putting these together?
Absolutely. I think that, number one, if someone wants me to create a custom piece for them, they have to love my work, right? They have to like my aesthetic. And for them, my language is always about adorning your authentic self, which, as you talk about, we live in a world of perceived perfection and people trying to be perfect. And whose definition of perfection are we actually following? And so for me, when I say adorning your authentic self, I mean that essence of who you are beneath the surface. I mean, I think we're all beautiful on the surface in all our variety of ways. But when we are actually getting down to the core of who we are and the individual light that we all bring, that is authenticity. And let's face it, we as humans, we're not perfect. Like we each have this beautiful array of imperfections that, we either try and cover up or we embrace. But my work is really about embracing imperfection as beauty. And, I was talking a little bit earlier about how when we look at nature and we see the bark of a tree or the spots that are in a flower or a leaf or a twig, like we find that beautiful. But when we see that in ourselves, we try and cover it up. And I too, I mean, I'm no stranger to vanity. I don't fully embrace, but what I'm trying to get at is that we are so beautiful just the way we are. And I think the more we can honor that, the better off we will be. And then the better off the collective will be, because I firmly believe that the more we embrace who we are on an individual level, the more we ripple effect out into the world. And if we can do that one piece of jewelry at a time, then I'm here for that. So the transformational adornments really are about embracing who you are on that soul level.
Well, I think you described that so perfectly, that parallel with nature, because I think any of us, when we see beauty in nature, it rarely is symmetrical. It's always has its flaws, just like we all have our scars internally and externally, and that's what makes us individuals, and it also what makes us. I think what brings out makes someone beautiful is those that asymmetry and those imperfections. And so, how is it that you're able to connect this with this art? I mean, because looking at some of your pieces, you see the metal work, right? And it's not shiny polished, but it's just fascinating to look at. And I can see how it's very hard to stare at a shiny polished thing for very long. But I can see me staring at some of your pieces here for a long time, just looking at the paths and the veins of the parts that are going through there. And I know as an artist, it seems like one of the hardest things to do is say something's finished.
Sure.
So what is your process to understand when something's finished and when something is reflection of your client, or is that something that you go through and discuss together?
Well, part of the process is providing some sketches. And also, most of the time, my clients give me freedom to flow with the materials there's a certain parameter of what the piece will look like, but they usually have trust that, as I'm creating a piece, if it wants to move into a slightly different direction, that is me connecting to them and what will best serve them. And that's part of my unique creative process, using that intuition. And just to give you a little background on that depth of what you're seeing and some of those marks. So, I've been making jewelry for 20 years, and most of my tools have been with me for that long. And I hammer on a steel block. And over the years, there are quite a few divots and dips and marks in that, so that when I'm hammering, I always put texture on my pieces, always. And when I'm hammering, that becomes a low relief. So I then put patina on the sterling or gold and then remove that. So it's a multi-step process. And then what you're seeing, that depth, is the patina, which is black in those crevices. And then it's a polish on the top. So there is that dimension there. And I think, again, that speaks to the dimension of who we are as humans. And it ends up being this really gorgeous texture that indicates the depth of who we are. And then you match it with, a beautiful stone, and you've got all of this contrast, but it all works together as a whole.
Yeah, it's I would encourage anyone to take a look at some of the videos and some of the pieces, because it really is remarkable. It makes you think of it in a completely different way. We talked about how throughout history, how jewelry has played a part, and you talked about the powers of it, and it's it struck me as how many times in film or other art, whether it's paintings or music, that jewelry is referenced to having some kind of powers. And if you want to go into the commercial side, you just think of what is it, Lord of the Rings, right? I mean,
Sure.
or that kind of thing. And it's always something that that are heirlooms. And
Mhm.
so, can you talk a little bit about the power of this jewelry and the lasting effect, and how this jewelry can be um, an heirloom and something that represents you to future family that you may not even meet.
Absolutely. So, a custom piece is special regardless of the reason, right? Because someone is saying that they are worthy of having something made specifically for them, which is such a beautiful affirmation of self and love for oneself, I think. And that's exactly what I communicate to the individual. And so that right there is the beginning of this gorgeous story. And the story then continues depending on, what the piece is being made for. Then it's created, and the individual in the family is wearing this piece. They're remembering, why they had it made for themselves, whatever that reason was. Their energy is steeped into this piece, right? And I've created it with the intention to adorn that ceremony or that celebration. So already you've got this really powerful piece created. And then as someone shares the story, preferably and hopefully many times over the course of their own life, and then, however it ends up into the hands of someone else in their family, for the next generation, that story continues, which only adds to the power. Because I don't know about you, but if I have something, and I do have things from my grandmothers and other family members, and they bring so much joy. I mean, just the joy alone to know that it was owned and loved by someone in my family is really powerful. And then you add on top of it that they created or had this piece created for themselves because they felt worthy of doing so for whatever reason it is. That energy passes on to the next generation, that they too are worthy of having something made for them. And then being able to wear that themselves is this beautiful modern heirloom to keep a story alive, not only of the person, but part of their life, a period of their life.
Yeah, it's really, discovering you and learning more about you has really changed the way I think about jewelry as a whole, and it really is remarkable. So I want to get back into some of the tactical and the logistical things, because you talked a little bit about how people fill out a questionnaire and you learn that helps you probably guide your intuition into to what they are creating. And some of that stuff has got to be not just you discovering something about your client, but there's got to be some pieces of self-discovery in there as well. And I think you may have glancingly talked about that, but can you go a little bit deeper on that and maybe some of the experiences that you've had with clients as they go through creating this stuff?
There is a reason why I have a box of tissues in my studio retail space. And that is something that, so I do have a storefront in the town where I live. So I do see clients in person, but there's many clients that I will never meet in person. And you are absolutely right. I think there's something that happens immediately when someone makes the decision to have something custom made for themselves. Again, it's that self-worth. It's claiming that you are worth paying, investing. It's really an investment in yourself. So that right there unlocks this beautiful doorway of self-discovery, right? Because either there's resistance to that or there's an automatic, heck yes, I deserve this. And then going over the course of the celebration, and it's really a mixed bag of what my clients are celebrating, but it always ends up being a pathway to a story in their past. And from my end, it always feels like a release for them because there's usually tears because of that self-worth. And let's face it, most people don't feel worthy. I would be brave enough to say to have, they have to think about having a custom piece made. But there's always this beautiful door that opens when someone is able to tell a version of their story or a part of their story on why they're doing this for themselves. Because this is deep. Like the questionnaire, saying this on this interview can feel somewhat surface, but when you go, I ask people to really make time to go into these questions and really get to the heart of why they're doing this. And automatically that, again, opens up this beautiful gateway to feelings. And some of that has been stuck in the subconscious for a while. But holding space for someone to ask these questions and then to make these pieces opens that up for them to be more conscious of what's been holding them back.
Listening to you, it makes me think about, there's always been, I think, a debate in the art world, and really it's art, beauty, it's all subjective, but I can't remember. I think it was a painter, Jackson Pollock, maybe. Mm-hmm. But the debate on whether, art is the product or the process.
Sure.
Or perhaps a combination of the two. Jackson Pollock always, people look at his paintings and they, well, it's just, paint splattered on the things. No, you missed the art. This is just this is the result of the art. But it sounds like you have a bit of both in there, because the process, it seems like, is just as important to get the result of the product. And I think anyone that misses that, is missing out on a lot, which brings me to my next question is, does that make it difficult to give transformational adornments as a gift? Or are you not giving the product, or are you giving the process, the results in the product?
That's a great question. I think you're giving both. And yes, people do gift the package of a custom transformational adornment. I'm trying to think if anyone's ever gone through the process for somebody else, and I think the answer is no, because it's so personal. Even if it's, celebrating a birthday, it's still like what I'm asking someone is to get at the heart, of a situation. And, a loved one can get close, but I think they soon realize how intimate of an experience it is. But it's so loving, to get the gift of a custom piece is equally as important and beautiful as, saying yes for that, from yourself. So you're right. The process and the piece both are part of this magic. um, it's such a beautiful experience to move through and then see the responses when someone receives it, whether it's a gift, to themselves, from themselves, or for them from someone else. It's really a beautiful, the responses are always very touching.
Yeah, and I can imagine. And I think magic, the word you used, I think that's very appropriate for what someone receives when they receive this as a gift. So I guess the next question is, and I know because this is such a personal thing, I would imagine you also have people that look at your pieces and say, "Ooh, I want something just like that." What was your response to that? Is it something, well, that's what you want, that's what the customer wants, or is it something where you kind of guide them that, you know what, maybe it could be better and um, more defined by you and who you are?
Well, because I have a retail space, I do have pieces that are, quote unquote, on the floor. So I make collections as well that are not custom. They're transformational adornments, but they're not custom. So I think they're as powerful. They're just not specifically made for the person. If someone sees a custom transformational adornment and says they want the exact same thing, I would say, let's go through the process on your own. My work, except for some certain projects, it's all one of a kind. And even if someone likes something that they see and they, it's not the right size or they want a different stone, it would never be exactly the same. And I'm always very clear about that. It would be close. But if someone really loves something and it is a custom transformational adornment, I really would encourage them to go through the process or lead them, down the road of, we can do something similar, but I would never, try and replicate something that was made for someone during that custom process, because that's made for them.
And I would bet it would be very tough to replicate something identical, because when you talked about the tools that you've been using and the 20 years of that, all I can think of is like a seasoned walk or something like that has its own, textures and things that no matter what, it's going to come out at least a little bit different and
Yep.
unique as you're putting that through. Um, what what is it that fueled your passion to do this? You've been doing this for a long time, and it's more than. Uh, and you are a jewelry artist. I know there's people that are jewelry designers and design jewelry, but that combination of the art, and then also, there's got to be a science to when you get into the metalsmithing part of it. How did you get involved in this, and what fueled your passion to do more than just create a line of jewelry and do something so that I'm sure it takes so much of your time and also investment in your own emotions when you're working with people? What fuels your passion for doing that?
Well, that connection with individuals, that one-on-one connection is definitely a motivating factor. I really love to honor the individuals and help them feel empowered to live their life and shine their light. It even makes me teary-eyed to think about it. Um, So 20 years ago, when I found the metalsmithing studio, so I have a fine arts degree in metalsmithing with an emphasis in jewelry. It really was a process of elimination. So I didn't go into, I didn't know I was going to end up, empowering people, or, making pieces that helped empower people. For me at that time, way back when, I was pretty much a hot mess and was just going through kind of the process of elimination of what I was going to be for the rest of my life. But when I found the metalsmithing studio, I really felt like I was coming home, and creating jewelry and adornment, creative expression has always been very important to me. From a young girl, that was really a way for me to communicate. And so creating jewelry just felt so perfect for me as a way to communicate what was happening in my own internal landscape, because at the time it was really hard for me to do that. So it was this process that was evolving over many years from that point, where I was understanding who I was through the pieces I was making. So back then, I was not making transformational adornments. I was making pieces that went to galleries, or I did shows. And then close to 5 years ago, I got to a point where I could feel, so when I was in the art world, I always felt like I was a little out of place because I loved the language of personal growth and transformation. So I felt like I didn't quite fit in the art world, but I didn't want to be a coach or a healer or a therapist, but I was really drawn to that language. So about 5 years ago, I really understood that I was able to create pieces for others to help them on their path of personal growth and transformation. And that could be celebrating any of those things we've already talked about. But it was really shifting perspective and realizing that I could do that for others, like I'd been doing for myself for all of those years.
So it's kind of been your own journey, and I guess you get your own growth out of every piece that you make for someone else. Sounds like.
Absolutely. I mean, it is definitely, just being trusted in creating a piece for somebody that is so symbolic and so important it's such an honor for me. It's such an honor. And it really helps me align to my own authentic self. You're right. I learn from each experience that every encounter that I experience with clients, whether they are, investing in a custom transformational adornment or purchasing a piece from a collection, it really is such an honor for me to do that. And it inspires me to continue what I'm doing. And again, I learn from every interaction.
I have to ask, just to circle back around before we go, is I know we talk about creating pieces for celebrating things
Mhm.
that we think about celebration, but it sounds like this process can also get people past some things that a lot of people may not feel that would be worthy of celebrating. Do you have people that have something that gets them past maybe an event, and life event, a traumatic event that going through this process helps them get through that and move forward as well?
And I think sometimes the language, because, I think that what I do is not what, the the society in a, big group doesn't necessarily understand what I'm doing with jewelry, which is why these conversations are so great. So the word celebrate can help people be drawn into the process. But you're right. I mean, I've had people who've had a death in the family have a piece created, or a divorce, and make a different ring for them. Or one instance that I can think of was my client, her dad passed away, and her mom had tried to give her engagement ring that she wore for X number of years. And at the time that her mom gave it to her, it wasn't her style, so she didn't wear it. But when she met me, she really saw the possibilities of what that diamond could be made into. So the piece really helped her feel connected to her dad, who had passed at a young age. So you're right. It is more than that is a celebration though. It's just a different way to come at a celebration. And it really helps move through some of those deeper, maybe more challenging emotions that someone might have that aren't as high as, getting a job that you've always wanted, that kind of thing, but they're equally as important.
Oh, in the essence, I think sometimes probably more so.
Sure. Yep.
The cathartic, almost that chrysalis effect, for some individuals and things that they go through. I have to say, Ali, it's just the stuff that you're doing is tremendous, and just like I said before, both the product and the process of the art. If anybody ever wondered about that concept, I think you are a perfect example of what that means, of defining that. And I have to thank you for coming on here today and sharing this, because I really do think that you open up a lot of eyes and a lot of minds when it comes to this, at the power that something that people probably take for granted and see every day, or pieces that can have such an important part of their lives. So thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome, and thank you for having me.
Well, how can people find out more? If someone wants to get involved with you and with your process, and be able to go through this process of the transformational adornment, what's the best way for them to learn more?
The easiest way is to just head over to my website, which is alikausadornment.com. And there will be examples there on my website, but you can also click on the tab, Create a Custom Transformational Adornment, and we can schedule a consultation, which is free. We just kind of go over what your intention is and get some ideas.
All right. Fantastic. Again, thank you so much for coming on. I could probably talk to you for another 5 hours on this. Yeah.
Another time.
Definitely, folks, check out Ali Kauss and Transformational Adornments. That's ALIKAUSSADORNMENT.com. And we'll have that link right there on the show post. And until next time on Influencers Radio, remember, you are the only real game changer.
You've been listening to Influencers Radio. To get all past shows and updates on future shows, visit influencersradio.com today.